Мика, тема его выступления меньше меньшим. На мой взгляд, это как раз тема, которая как нельзя больше подчеркивает роль архитектора в экоустойчивой архитектуре. Потому что архитектор без использования техники, без использования таких высокотехнологичных инструментов, одними архитектурно-пространственными приемами, композицией может достичь очень многого. Например, в декларации Международного союза архитекторов, которая была принята на Копенгагенской конференции в 2009 году, приводились конкретные цифры, что архитектура с правильно выбранной технологией и строительными материалами может сократить на 80-90% негативное влияние на окружающую среду. И думаю, что нам сейчас Мика об этом расскажет. Пожалуйста.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. The sustainable architecture is not only fancy air-conditioned diagrams, nor fetishism of high-tech appliances. And that's why I have chosen my short talk, the title, Less is Less. It's not, you all know this famous Mies van der Rohe's maxim, less is more, but I think Mies was not primarily ecologist. It was more or less kind of a architectural minimalist manifesto. But what I mean here with this less is less, that using less resources, building less, you will have a less impact on our environment. And I have chosen 5 projects from past 15 years of our office, Heikkinen Komonen. And I would like to start with, that's my favorite project. It's in Komi Republic. You can see here Finland. This is actually a geographical map of a small girl going to school in Komi, in Sixtiipka. And you can see the green area, of course, it's very familiar, the Komi. And what we did there was, well, first of all, the forests in northern Scandinavia, and especially the vast forests in northern Russia, they are the lungs of Eurasia continent. And still in the heart of Komi, there are still to be found pristine forests. Forests which are not touched by the human hand. It's really very rare in Europe. And our project was to make a small research center for sustainable forestry, to research and to help the Komi people to sustain and preserve these their rare pristine forests. And that was a cooperation, it's a very rare cooperation. Normally when architect, when artist is involved in architectural projects, architect asks the artist to join the team, but this time it was vice versa. We had a friend, Swiss artist George Steinman, who asked us to help in his project to build this small research center for sustainable forestry. The project was financed by World Wildlife Foundation and a Swiss foundation together with Russian foundations. And I think it was some 15 years, I had the opportunity to travel to Komi, and together with artist Chaiman, our job was to find a site for this research center. And as you can see, we were very well welcomed in Komi villages. That was the usual, dinner which was served for us in all the villages. And finally, we were able to find a place near Luja River, which is south western part of the Komi Republic, looking towards the river. This is the site map. It was just behind the proposed building. There were a huge forest, and on the right-hand side you can see an Orthodox church. The actual building, the architecture was to make as simple as possible a long building made out of logs, which could be taken from close of the site. And the program for the building was very simple. There were spaces for accommodation for the researchers, of course banya, that was a must, and places for research and to work. And also a part of this project was to organize a training camp in Russia and also in Finland for Russian builders to build, to in a way revitalize using logs in building. There's been a certain cut in this tradition on that area. And this is the basic diagram of the architecture. So in a way there was a backside of the building opening with small windows towards the fir and pine trees. It's a very dramatic forest and having open views towards the Lusa river and the endless taiga in front of it. The global resources, they are very restricted, as we know, but also in many cases when architects start a new commission, also the financial resources are very limited. And that's in most of the cases where we are working in Finland, that's how we had to start. We had almost no money. And so any fancy kind of Zaha Hadid architecture is not normally possible, and neither we can really waste any space. So we have to be very economic. And this is provincial archive. There's Finland in maybe half a dozen archives all around in the country. And this is one of the archives a little bit north from our capital, Helsinki. And what is archive? It's almost half of the cubic meters is this kind of a huge container containing old books and old maps. No windows were allowed, a kind of blind box. And then there's a space for visitors to research, for instance, their ancestors, and then of course spaces for kind of backstage spaces for the officials and researchers, which are not open for the public. So this is the first floor, which is open for the public. The service areas, they are kind of islands in the middle of this quite vast see-through space. And the office spaces and this huge box is divided, separated by a canyon as high as the whole building. And how to make architecture to this kind of just a simple box? So we had a graphic artist who researched the old books and the letters and the maps, and he picked up all kind of figures, marks and initial letters and symbols out of documents from the Russian time, even earlier from the Swedish time, and you can see the @ mark from the email sign as well. So the building is more or less kind of a memory stick for the users. So what are in most cases, in many times the architect's commission, more or less it involves recycling old structures, old buildings. And this time it was a headquarters for Senate Properties. It's a big institution which is responsible for all Finnish state building projects. The site was an old warehouse, former Elanto cooperative. This is a similar task, I think, you have several in Moscow. I've just visited a couple of days ago Vinsavod area and Strelka area, the Red October buildings and so on. This is pretty much similar case. A warehouse which was, well, in first sight it's really hard to think about that it could be used for any other purpose than just storing things. Low ceilings, almost no light. So what architect has to do is to be like a surgeon. You have to make amputations, take parts of the buildings away. That's absolutely nothing, almost nothing to do with the historical renovations. You really have to be very hard. You have to harden your heart in this kind of project. So sometimes we have to take one floor away to give more space to the foyer areas, which now at the present state it looks like Egypt temple. The silos for grain silos, we tried to preserve most of them, locating functions which don't need any windows there. So we absolutely didn't want to punch any holes to these really strong, architecturally strong elements. And the ceiling height was very low, so no suspended ceiling. They were possible, so we had a lot of technical problems to be solved, and we had to take the courtyard wall away to give more light into the office spaces. So you have to really be like a very hard-hearted surgeon in this kind of operations. And finally, most of the spaces, they were just sandblasted. The old structures were sandblasted, and you could really reveal really very nice architectural details under the many layers of painting and plaster and so on. So you can also recycle history. This is an example of housing area in our capital Helsinki, which is close to the factories, one of the probably most known design factories in Finland, Arabia factories, which are making all kind of design houseware. You probably have heard about it, with very famous Finnish designers. Kai Frank, for instance, has made a lot of Kristina Riska most frequently. So there was a butter jar in the top shelf of my kitchen. So I found that from Arabia from the 30s. So I picked this figure, or the image, the flower from this jar, and then what we did, there's a lot of waste ceramics coming out of the factory which could not be used, could not be sold for the clients. So what we did, we smashed those plates and coffee cups and then put them onto the facade elements. You can see there's a Moomin jar, probably mug, some coffee cup, bottom of the coffee cup, and all kind of pieces of plates. They were put on the bottom of the concrete element mounds, and then the concrete was cast on these pieces, which were put according to the figures we have given to the element factories. You can see the huge figures, these flower figures which were taken from the 30 spaces. And last example is the city library in the eastern, mid-eastern Finland, Savonlinna, famous from its castle, Olavinlinna, and the wood, of course, the wood is well, it's the ecological material, of course. I think even in Holland, you are speaking about like this. So it's almost a mantra. But it's true because there's in Finland, and especially I would guess in Russia, you have huge resources for your woods and so on. So it's kind of almost endless resource of the material. And in Finland at the moment, it's really topical. There's a very strong kind of push to use wood in all projects, and I'm professor at the Aalto School of Architecture in Helsinki, and we have very kind of ambitious programs on using woods at the moment. So here in the Savonlinna City Library, all the exterior envelope, even it's a relatively large building, is made of wood. The roof structure, all the facades and the external columns are made of wood. The inside of the building is quite clear, plain hall to make it possible for to use it flexibly in the future, change the kind of the partitions within the library and so on. But the exterior of this wooden structure is covered by metal mesh, which is we have used the same graphic designer as this archive building. There's a metal mesh which is from all over the facades, and then we have knit, as you can see from the smaller picture, with stainless steel pieces figure kind of small elements which create these traditional or kind of pictures from Savonlinna, the local history. There's all kind of animal motifs and so on. So and the facades of the building are made of, it's in English, lark, and I just Google translated what it is in Russia. It's listvenica. I hope I pronounce it right. And this listvenica is taken from northern Siberia, because the best listvenica grows in Russia. Thank you.
Есть вопрос у кого-нибудь? Mikko, thank you very much for a very interesting speech and images. Большое спасибо за очень интересный рассказ и те материалы, которые вы показали. Действительно, экоустойчивая архитектура – это не только набор технологий и энергосбережения экологии, это еще, конечно же, и создание комфортной среды. Эта комфортная среда не может быть создана без некого рукотворного участия, без участия художника. И, как мы видели на этих работах, использование керамики, использование металла, оно предназначено именно для этого места. Это создает некий образ места, что очень тоже важно. Мика, я хотел бы вас спросить такой вещи, что мы знаем, что в мире есть система добровольной сертификации зеленых зданий. ЛИД, БРИАМ английская, ДГНБ в Европе действует. Эти системы разных поколений, и они немножко отличаются друг от друга. Скажем, ЛИД и БРИАМ – это больше зеленые, экологические системы. ДГНБ – это система второго поколения, которая использует жизненный цикл, экоустойчивый подход. Вот в Финляндии вы при проектировании, у вас есть хождение каких-то своих добровольных систем сертификации, или вы опираетесь только на законодательные нормативные базы?
Yes. Oh, okay. Is it on? Okay. We don't have any own. I think it's enough. The BREEAM and the other lead and so on. I think it's enough. We can do with those. And it's well, I know it's very fashionable and almost it's a must. If you build something in the larger projects, you really have to have these stamps on the building. Otherwise, it's I think the investors are preaching for them. So it's a kind of stamp of well, it's well, that's a good building and so it's okay. It's a little bit. Well, I don't feel so comfortable with these BREEAMs and LEEDs and so on. So it's more or less, you know, in the restaurants you have this chaîne of roti serves, this sign which you can, if you well open a restaurant, you can buy. I think you can buy those signs and join the international club, and then in a way you can build up your face in that way. I think it's there's something which is not which are a little bit suspect with these international labels. They are more or less kind of it's a kind of a closed club you have to join, and what do they really measure the real ecological impact of the building? I think it's a question which is I'm not totally sure about the answer. I'm a little
Thank you
skeptic.
very much. Yes, you are skeptic, but I'll speak Russian. Я понимаю ваш скептицизм, и многие архитекторы также несколько осторожно относятся к системе сертификации, считая их скорее более инженерными. Но есть такое понятие, как расчет жизненного цикла и оценка жизненного цикла здания. Вот в Финляндии применяют этот метод расчета, или же здание оценивает опять только на момент постройки, вот как у вас? При составлении сметной документации, проектной, да? При составлении проектной документации есть сметный расчет. Вот в этот сметный расчет закладывается жизненный цикл здания или нет?
Yes, we have to do that. Even though if you build anything which needs a building permit, today in Finland you have to really, you need a lawyer to fill all the papers, and not only the lawyer, but there had to be, I think, a lot of experts. So even one family house had to, in a way, comply a lot of this kind of regulations. So it's, I think in Finland we are more, I don't know if you have in Russia this saying, but we are more religious than Pope.
Да. Спасибо, Микко, было очень интересно.